Okay. There is the tab I wanted. This one. Move that over here.
First appearing in the Generation 4 games Diamond and Pearl, the physical special split is one of the biggest changes in gameplay that the main series Pokemon games have ever seen. And I, like many others, was a big fan of the change. Everything just made so much more sense, and it really shifted the viability
remember
of
what
many
I was
different
doing
Pokemon from the
last.
previous 3 generations.
We'll figure it out.
There were a handful of Pokemon in the Generation 3 games in particular that were just not able to perform well in the absence of this mechanic. In this video, I'm going to go over 5 Pokemon from Generation 3 that suffered greatly without the physical special split, as well as 3 that actually benefited from not having it. I should probably also go over what the physical special split is for those of you who don't know. So let's get started. Now, for those of you that may not know, the physical special split was an evolution of how Pokemon utilized their offensive
I gotta
stats.
walk all this
See,
fucking
before
tune
Pokemon
back
Diamond
to
and
the
Pearl, every
house.
single type in the entire
Wail
game
on me.
each operated off of either the Pokemon's physical attack stat or their special attack stat. A great example to describe how this works is the Dark typing, which came out in Generation 2. For all you young whippersnappers out there whose first games were Diamond and Pearl or Black and White, you probably decided to give Pokemon Emerald a spin for the very first time, caught a Magikarp early, evolved it into a Gyarados because Gyarados is freaking awesome, and then you started to play with him for a bit. And over time you may have started to wonder, wait, why is Tackle dealing more damage than Bite? A 35 base power move deals more than a 60 base power move in this situation because Bite is a Dark type move, and Dark type moves before Generation 4 were always based on the Pokemon's special attack, not their physical attack. And for those of you who don't know, Gyarados' special attack stat is less than half of his physical attack stat, and that is why this happens. Take a look at this list for how all of the types were categorized before the Generation 4 games. All grass moves were special attacks, all ghost and poison moves were physical attacks, all dragon moves were special attacks, etc.
I think I got all the
if you're ever
10
playing a game from Generation 1, 2, or 3, keep this list in mind when you play. So what happened to this dynamic once the physical special split was introduced? Well, Game Freak removed the typing requirement for both attacking stats and just made individual moves either physical or special, simply based on what makes sense for the move. Going back to the Bite example, the act of a Pokemon biting another one is clearly a physical attack, and that makes direct contact with the opposing Pokemon. And to this day, Bite is now considered a physical attack instead of a special one. Now Gyarados can actually use it without hitting like a wet noodle. Another good example would be moves like Fire Punch or Ice Punch, both of which were special attacks before Diamond and Pearl, but since then are now physical attacks, because last time I checked I'm pretty sure punching things is still a physical motion in the real world. And that's pretty much it, although this was no simple change. This dramatically affected many of the Pokemon that existed before the split, some of which would be changed forever. Now that we've gone over what the physical special split is and what it has done for these Pokemon games, let's take a look at some of the Pokemon that suffered the most before it was implemented. What better way to kick off this list than with the Pokemon we just talked about? Back in Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, Gyarados was still a fantastic Pokemon. It still had Intimidate, it still had massive stats, and you still got him ridiculously early. The But that moveset, holy shit, the moves he learned in those games via level up were hot garbage. The worst it's ever been for him. The attacking moves in this list aren't very good to begin with, but what adds insult to injury here is that Bite, of course, is a dark type move, and that means it's a special move in this game. I was not kidding when I said Tackle will deal more damage. And by the looks of all the other TMs and HMs you get, you'll be tackling all the way up until you get Strength, and then strengthening your way until you get Earthquake or something. Super late in the game, by the way. Waterfall and Dive are also special moves in this generation, remember, so there's no help there either. It's also kinda ironic that Gyarados gets Dragon Dance in these games as well, even though it'll be sweeping with Strength unless you give him your Earthquake TM. Again, Gyarados is still a great Pokemon in these games, don't get me wrong. But man, even Gyarados went up a huge level once that physical special split came into play. Buckle up, because the dark typing is a big reason why a lot of the Pokemon on this list fall short in the earlier generations. Mighty Anna's plight is quite simple. He's got a good attack stat with a terrible special attack stat. But what are his best moves via level up? Bite and Crunch. Both of which are dark, both of which are special, and Mighty Anna suffers greatly from it. With Intimidate being an incredible ability, and Dark being a very solid defensive typing, especially in these games, Mighty Anna could have been so much better in his own generation if Bite and Crunch were physical attacks. Yet another Dark type makes the list. Although, Crawdont has some other issues going on as well. Both of his typings are based on special attack, while his physical attack stat is what he really wants to utilize. And other than Vice Grip, which is a normal type move, Crawdont doesn't learn a single physical move via level up. While his special attack stat isn't the worst, his physical attack stat is just so much higher, and all of that offensive capability just ends up going to waste. It just feels bad. This is the last Dark type, I promise. But it is the one Dark type done the absolute dirtiest in Ruby Sapphire.
I know I have seeds.
Now you take one good look at his stat spread and you tell me what you see. Now let's take a look at the level up moves. And now the TMs. This really sucks for a Pokemon that has a really cool design. The only usable physical moves via level up is Slash, and what TMs are you going to give him? Shadow Ball, I guess? Aerial Ace? And that's it, I suppose. Of course, any good Dark type moves would have been useless anyway, as they are, for the 17th time, all special before the Generation 4 games. I love Absol, and he's really good, but not without the physical special split. Flygon is also done really dirty in his original generation. Just like the others, he's got a huge attack stat and a lackluster special attack stat. And again, Game Freak decided not to give him any physical moves for him to utilize. I mean, what am I supposed to do with Sand Tomb and Hyper Beam? Unless I teach him the TM for Earthquake, my other option is to wait to evolve Trapinch until level 41 so that he can at least have Dig, which is okay, but not good. And outside of Iron Tail, Flygon's got nothing on the physical side. More stats that just go to waste. Sorry, buddy. You were just born in the wrong game. For the most part, the majority of older Pokemon that went through the physical special split saw improvements in their performance. But there were actually a few that got worse because of it. Let's go over some of the Pokemon that actually thrived before the physical special split. While there weren't too many ghost types hovering around the earlier generations, Banette was a particularly unique one, in that his primary offensive stat was actually physical attack, not special, which was very abnormal for that typing. This helped Banette out a lot in the Generation 3 games because Ghost was a physical typing back then. Out of all of the Ghost types back then, he was the one that would hit the hardest with Shadow Ball, and that alone boosted his performance significantly. Once we cross over into Diamond and Pearl, Banette would no longer have a stab Ghost type move that was physical, and would have to rely on physical Dark type moves instead, like Fan Attack and Sucker Punch. Overall, I just thought it was a step down. So this just doesn't go for Crobat, but really for all poison types, honestly, especially in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. Poison was a physical typing before the physical special split, and that gave poison types access to Sludge Bomb before it became a special move. A physical 90 base power move with a 30% chance to poison. On a Crobat especially, it was just so good, and most other poison types relied on their physical attack stat back then anyways. Crobat is always good in any game, but with both of his typings fueling his physical attack stat, man, he was something else back in Gen 3. Finally, we actually get to talk about a starter in Sceptile. Super fast and hits really hard, especially if you can set up Overgrow. But as far as his moveset goes, we all know that Sceptile basically does one thing and one thing only. Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade is obviously super powerful and very useful to have on most grass types if you can get it. However, in later generations, it is considered a physical move, and that is just not what Sceptile is looking to do. However, in his original game, all grass type moves are special, including Leaf Blade. When you're a one-trick pony, boy, that trick better work wonders for you. And luckily for Sceptile, using Leaf Blade in the generation he was born in can carry him all the way home. And with that, this video is now over. I think we can all agree that the physical special split was a good idea overall, and really improved the way a lot of Pokemon utilize their moves. I'm just glad that my Gyarados can learn Bite now upon evolving, and I don't have to be sad about it anymore. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments if you have a favorite Pokemon that got better or worse from the physical special split. That's it from me. I'll see you next time.
That was a good video.
What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet video. Sorry for 2 of these in a row. I mean, maybe I'm not sorry, it depends how much you guys like them, but with Scarlet and Violet around the corner, I actually have like a pretty big wish list of balance changes I really want to see included in the game, because when a new generation comes out, that's the only time we get balance changes. Like I mean, I guess with DLC sometimes we get like, you know, moveset updates, but it's mostly just buffs, like no nerfs or anything. But I just want to talk about some abilities that, you know, we have in the game that I think need a rework. Now, I got 3 nerfs and 2 buffs, so this video is kind of balanced. I didn't want to have it be all nerfs, but yeah, notably it's all Gen 8 ability nerfs, because a lot of this stuff is balanced with Dynamax. And so now that Dynamax is gone, I think it's pretty much mandatory that they do something different with the ability. So yeah, if you guys enjoy this at any point in time, do me a favor, leave a like in the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn notifications, because I bring you daily competitive Pokemon content. And also be sure, in the description down below, I'll be linking my Instagram and my TikTok page. I actually just started both of those, and you guys can actually see like some of the YouTube shorts that I upload on both of those. But there's also gonna be a little bit of exclusive content. If you guys use either of those social media, you know, be sure to check it out. Anyways, let's get into it. And obviously, you know, comment down below what abilities you think need a rework. Don't say Intimidate. Don't say Intimidate. You're going to summon awful things upon us. That ability is perfect. Anyways, so the first ability that I think needs like a major rework is actually going to be Transistor. Now, I mentioned Regieleki in yesterday's video for Pokemon that I don't want to see return, but I'll be honest, it's pretty much inevitable that the legendaries all return with the DLC, at least most of them. And yeah, Transistor is probably going to be back in the game. Here's my issue, right? So Transistor is a pretty powerful ability. It gives you basically a choice specs or choice band boost depending on which stat you're using. If you're clicking Thunderbolt, you get 1.5 times special attack. If you're clicking Wild Charge, you get 1.5 times attack. Because of this, Regieleki is one of the most devastating mixed attackers in the game. And honestly, its power level is fine without Dynamax, but I'd prefer it be tuned down a little bit. Being able to like one-shot every water type in the game with, you know, just like Thunderbolt is a little bit absurd. Being able to two-shot things that just like don't have great special defense with Electrode or Thunderbolt is a little bit gross. So my issue is that like Life Orb Regieleki has absurd damage output. Yes, it can't hit ground types. Yes, it gets walled out by like, you know, Lightning Rod Pokemon. But I think that going into Gen 8, it would make sense to make Transistor a Life Orb boost and not 1.5. It's still a devastating ability, don't get me wrong. You get Life Orb on either your physical or special attack, depending on which one you're using, but I think that, you know, it won't be nearly as devastating as it was in Gen 8, where you got basically a choice boost, which is, let's be honest, right? So like a choice boost comes with the downside of, oh, your choice locked into a move, but Regieleki getting it for free is a little bit gross, so I think the Life Orb boost is more than enough to keep this thing viable, especially with stats like this. Yeah, and also the reason I say Life Orb is because it keeps it fair for Regidrago, which will probably have the ability reworked as well if Regieleki gets its reworked, since Regidrago has the same ability only for Dragon-type moves. So yeah, I think that to keep it fair, 1.3 is like the perfect middle ground for both of these. Regidrago still has a devastating Dragon Energy, and Regieleki isn't nearly as terrifying, so that's my idea for those guys. Moving on to the second nerf, Urshifu, Rapid Strike, and Urshifu Single Strike have the ability Unseen Fist. Now, Unseen Fist allows you to bypass Protect entirely, so, you know, the only exception is Max Guard. Max Guard is no longer in the game, so if you are using a Pokemon against Urshifu in Generation 9, you don't have any way to bypass this ability. It's going to bypass your Protect, it's going to hit you with a Wicked Blow, Close Combat, whatever it needs to, and it's going to deal full damage. I think that ability is a little bit broken, especially on a Pokemon with stats like this. Like 97 speed, 130 attack, and crit moves is a little bit gross, right? I think the only way that they can balance it while not getting rid of the ability entirely is to do what we did with Generation 7 Z moves, or even with Dynamax moves. With Gen 7 Z moves and Dynamax moves, if you Protect versus them, it still bypasses the Protect, but it doesn't deal full damage. And in a way, it would be a callback to max moves. Like it's hitting like it's a max move, right? So there's some kind of multiplier on it to reduce the damage if you go with Protect, but this still allows the ability to be really, really good, because it means that Focus Sash Pokemon, you know, they'll eat the first hit, go down to Focus Sash, and then like the next turn they're going to want to Protect and have their partner deal with you. Well, now that isn't an option. Like now you still are able to deal like that reduced damage, but still significant damage. Like you'll be able to pick off things that want to Protect versus you. So I think that's like the best way to, you know, nerf the ability without completely breaking it or making it completely unusable. But yeah, I mean, it's not like these guys really need the ability to function well. Honestly, like their sheer offensive pressure with like Surging Strikes and Wicked Blow is still absurd. Like these are some of the best choice band Pokemon in the game. So I think that's all they really need, is tune down that ability so it doesn't deal as much damage through Protect, but it still bypasses the Protect. Finally, Zacian. Intrepid Sword. I'm not even sure it's going to keep Rusted Sword. For all I know, like Zacian's going to lose like the transform in the next game, but I really doubt it.
Please, why?
I think that Intrepid Sword should only activate once. I think that's the way you make the ability fair. The fact that this thing just has to be intimidated twice to get that attack stat lower than 408 is a little gross. Or actually, I'm sorry, if it's adamant, get that attack stat lower than 448. After an Intimidate, it's oh no, that's even wrong. After an Intimidate, it's 482. After 2 Intimidates, it's lower. That's a little gross, right? Obviously, you know, it's able to KO things like Incineroar with Close Combat from neutral. It's able to just hit everything with like Fairy or Steel moves. Like these are some of the best typings in the game to have offensively at your disposal. So it already has some like broken stats. So if Zacian Crown stays in the game, I think we're gonna have to like make it so Intrepid Sword can only activate once per game. So, you know, you lead off with it, you get intimidated. Oops, well, I guess you're at neutral. You know, it's basically a clear bounty for that first turn versus the Intimidate. Or if you come in later on, you get that +1, but if you switch out and come back in, it doesn't activate again. I think that's like probably the way that we're gonna have to do it. I think that's definitely like one of the few ways we're gonna be able to get Zacian tuned down to the point where it'll be not a broken Pokemon in future games. Granted, Zacian wasn't actually, I mean, it was that bad, but it wasn't as bad as when Dynamax was around. Because if you're unaware, Zacian's value comes from the fact that Behemoth Blade deals the same damage to Dynamax and non-Dynamax Pokemon. So where, you know, a Dynamax Pokemon will usually take half damage due to having double HP, Behemoth Blade doubles in power, making it so it's the exact same damage calc. So yeah, that's the main value of it. So when Dynamax Pokemon are gone, Behemoth Blade isn't nearly as valuable, which is why, you know, Zacian usage actually kind of fell a little bit when Dynamax was banned in Series 10. It was still really good, don't get me wrong. But when Dynamax is gone, like there's not as much of a, you know, I don't know how to say it. It wasn't as mandatory, you know? So you could get away with not using it. But yeah, I think Zacian just needs that little bit of balance to make it still a busted legendary, but not be where it is right now. Alright, so enough with the negative stuff. Let's talk about positives. I think that these two abilities need some buffs. I almost said nerfs again. But these abilities are abilities that are absolutely useless in competitive battles. Runaway, no competitive use, and Illuminate, no competitive use. And honestly, by, you know, buffing these abilities, we can actually get some pretty cool Pokemon. So my idea for Runaway is an idea that I've seen a lot. There's an item in the game called the Shed Shell. Now, Shed Shell means that you can't be trapped by Shadow Tag, Arena Trap, Magnet Pull, none of that. It makes it so you're always able to switch out. There's nothing that can keep you in. Now, I think that as an item, it's hard to find a reason to run that in VGC. I think maybe we've seen like Shed Shell Celesteela once in like 2017 or maybe 2018 when there was a little bit of counterplay with that with like Magnezone. It wasn't common though, obviously. It was like a bad item, but you would have situationally to beat Magnezone. But I think that if we're going to get that item to be somewhat relevant,
Oh, I ate enough to
I think
carry the whole
buffing
stuff.
Runaway to make it basically a built-in shed shell isn't that bad. And honestly, there are lots of abilities that are just built-in items. Overcoat is a built-in safety goggles. I don't know. There's other ones. Trust me, there are other ones. I'm just forgetting them right now. But yeah, having a built-in shed shell is really nice because it would make all the Runaway Pokemon able to switch out versus stuff like Gothitelle or well, Mega Gengar's not in the game, but like, you know, Arena Tremons. So that means Dunsparce has a little bit of a niche in the fact that it can switch out on those Pokemon. The Rapidash can switch out, Beetle can switch out. As for other Pokemon that like might be in the game that can get it, now you'll be able to switch out your Pachirisu versus trapping Pokemon. Dodrio, Raticate. Obviously, those aren't like the most common competitive Pokemon. They're pretty niche, if not just outright awful. But having that ability isn't bad, you know. That is a good option for these. And for all we know, we might get like more Route 1 Pokemon that have Runaway in the next game that could make use of it. So yeah. And my final ability that I want to talk about today is Illuminate. Now, Illuminate has no competitive use. If I remember correctly, it like makes it easier to find wild Pokemon in, you know, the casual game. Ooh, very cool. But Illuminate, I think, would be a bit of a weird move to like, or a bit of a weird ability to find a use for, but I did think of one. I think that when Illuminate is active, it should work as like not AoE, but you know how like Fairy Aura makes it so that like, you know, all fairy type moves have a boost in power. I think Illuminate should make it so the entire field ignores evasion increases and accuracy drops. I think it should be like, if it's on the field, right, like, okay, well now, like, if you're facing Minimize Chansey, you can switch in your Illuminate Pokemon and hit it despite the fact that, you know, this thing has been minimizing and, like, it has crazy evasion. Or maybe when Illuminate's on the field, it's a counter to, like, Sand Veil or Snow Veil or whatever those abilities are. But I think that it would only make sense if it wasn't just for your team, but, like, the whole team, or, like, the whole field. I think, you know, thematically, that's how Illuminate should work. And, you know, if we make Illuminate actually, like, a decent ability, there are some Pokemon that would gain a little bit of a niche from that. Starmie, as good as Natural Cure and Analytic is, you might be able to find a use for it as an Illuminate Pokemon, depending on how the metagame shapes up. Lantern obviously gets something other than the 2 immunities that it has. Shiinotic gets like an ability. Actually, I think Shiinotic's like the prime example of a Pokemon that could use this, since it would make it so like it's able to land its spores versus like evasion boosting Pokemon like, you know, Chansey. And other Pokemon that exist, you know, Volbeat, Watchog, those aren't going to see too much usage, especially since Volbeat has Prankster. Like, that's already like a top tier ability, so yeah. Anyways, I just thought I would make a quick video about like my little wish list of abilities I'd like to see reworked in Scarlet and Violet. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'll actually have some like, I don't know how many of you guys like the battle videos more than the discussion videos. Obviously, I think most of you are here for like the lore and like essay videos that I make, and honestly, that's what I'm here to make more than anything. But tomorrow we'll have like a battle video or something, just to, you know, get a change of pace going. I feel like I've been doing a lot of Scarlet and Violet discussion, but obviously, if you want more discussion, comment down below stuff that you want me to talk about referring to Scarlet and Violet as to, like, you know, Pokemon I want to see buffed, Pokemon I want to see nerfed, just different things. Anyways, yeah. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet video. Now, with Scarlet and Violet being out in less than, you know, 2 months, I guess it was a little over 1 month, technically, is a little bit better of a descriptor. What I want to do is make a few more videos, just kind of getting you guys hyped up for it. But the thing that I want to cover today is Cerebi has been keeping track of all of the Pokemon that are so far revealed to be available in the game, including old generation Pokemon, you know, like Golduck or Arcanine and Cloyster and, you know, all the Pokemon, right? And what I want to do is talk about how this Dex is looking to shape up as far as VGC goes. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video at any point in time, do me a favor, leave a like on it, subscribe to the channel, and turn notifications because I bring you daily Pokemon content. and answer my comment question today. What Pokemon do you really want to return in this Dex, and do you want it to be good in VGC? I guess, you know, let me know. Yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So, as you know, as usual, we don't know a lot about the stats for these new Pokemon, so we can be a little bit inquisitive and, you know, assume some things about them, but for the most part, we'll be talking about older Pokemon returning, and discuss how I feel about their viability going into this game. But yeah, let's talk about it. Actually, let me check something really quick. Let me check something really important. There's no wheezing yet. We don't know if wheezing's in. Okay, that could be kind of huge for something I want to talk about, but yeah, okay. So let's ignore the starters, and we'll talk about the Fletchinder and Talonflame now. So Talonflame is actually a pretty phenomenal Pokemon as far as regional decks go, and it holds a very near and dear place in my heart because it's actually the first Pokemon that I top cut a tournament with. Let me go to national decks. Here we go. It's the first Pokemon that I top cut a tournament with, and that was in Gen 7 after they nerfed Gale Wings. So Gale Wings used to be, you know, even if it isn't at full HP, the flying moves would always have +1 priority. So this thing had permanent priority Tailwind, Brave Bird, Roost. You know, Roost is the thing you would do if you would run like a bulk up set. But for me, I remember my set was, it was really cool. So it was back when we had Fire EMZ in the game. I ran Tailwind, Overheats, Taunt, and what was my last move? And Will-O-Wisp. And that was my set, and I had like this as my spread, and it was basically just meant to like one-shot Celesteela with a Z fire move instead of Tailwind for the rest of the team. But we now know that we have priority Tailwind within this format, so instant Tailwind's gonna be pretty amazing. I would assume that Talonflame's gonna be top tier just by that alone. Talonflame is a phenomenal Pokemon, and we can assume it's gonna be great in the format as long as there isn't any like straight up Talonflame counter that makes it completely unviable. But yeah, Talonflame definitely gonna be a top tier within this VGC format just by virtue of there probably isn't a Whimsicott. I don't think there's Whimsicott in here, and also there's definitely no Tornadus in the regional decks. They tend to save that for the national decks format. So yeah, Talonflame we can just assume. Houndour, it's not historically very great, to be honest. As far as fire types go, you can do a lot better. Or Houndoom. Houndoom is not historically that great, but I could see it being okay. I mean, like, is Arcanine confirmed? Is Arcanine confirmed? I mean, Arcanine's confirmed. It's over for Houndour. So the thing is, like, Houndour is always... Houndour, I can't say it. Houndoom is going to be consistently competing with Arcanine for a spot as a fire-type Pokemon. And they have, like, the same speed. Houndour... I'm going to do this the whole video, aren't I? I have to stop talking about Houndoom soon. Houndoom has similar speed, but it hits a little bit harder on the special side. But the issue is it doesn't have Intimidate, and while it does have access to, like, Snarl and, like, Dark Pulse, and it could be, like, a nasty plot Pokemon, generally speaking, Arcanine's probably going to be the standard with, like, Will-O-Wisp, Flare Blitz, I don't know, Protect. It could also get, like, Safeguard, which is something that's really, really good for it. So that is something that we have to keep in mind. Like, Arcanine's definitely going to be the standard. Like, we already have 2 top-tier fire types in this format, and that's just something to keep in mind. Like, it's going... Any fire type we talk about going forward is going to have to compete with them. So, yeah. Next up, we have... Gyarados. So Gyarados is pretty interesting. It's historically okay in regional dex formats, mainly just because, I mean, I guess maybe not actually, now that I think about it. Hold on. Alright, so it's historically good in regional dex formats. I think it saw some play in 2014, and it also definitely saw some play in 2017. It once again is a Intimidate Pokemon, and as a water type and a flying type, it pairs well with like any Earthquake spammers. So that's something to keep in mind. Dragon Dance is a thing that it can do. Waterfall is definitely going to be within its move set. By the way, I feel like I have to say this. Like, I'm probably not going to talk about terrestrialization in this video, because it's such a strange thing that we're not going to understand enough about until after the game releases, maybe a month after the game releases, to talk about definitively. That for now, I'm just going to talk about like the Pokemon's viability. So yeah, Gyarados could turn into a grass type and do Terrestrial Power Whip, but we're going to talk about it as a Pokemon on its own. because you can only terrestrialize one Pokemon, you know? That's a thing. We have to keep that in mind. You can only terrestrialize one Pokemon, so we're just going to talk about what Pokemon will be 99% of the time. And Gyarados is going to be generally very good just with this set. Probably like a Life Orb, or if there's like Spore Pokemon, then Safety Goggles is going to be pretty decent. Smoliv, a couple more regional Pokemon. Pikachu isn't something to really talk about. Raichu is probably going to be pretty good, just by virtue of being like a really great support Pokemon in VGC historically, and also if Gyarados is good. Like Gyarados Raichu is obviously something that people will try to do at the beginning. You have Fake Out, you have access to that, plus like Dragon Dance, and like Setup, and Lightning Rod keeps your Gyarados from getting one-shot by electric moves. So yeah, I mean, like obviously Raichu's can be pretty phenomenal. Wigglytuff isn't historically great. It's a competitive Pokemon, so if Arcanine's good, maybe we'll see some Wigglytuff stuff. It really depends on the regional decks as a whole and how it shapes up. Venomoth we haven't seen in a while. Not historically a great Pokemon, but might see some usage if the cards play out right for it. Dugtrio is a trapping Pokemon. It's a ground type. It could be the best ground type that we have for all I know. Like there are not many ground types revealed so far, so if there's like no Excadrill, we could actually see some legitimate Dugtrio usage, which is kind of cool. Persian, not historically great. It's a Fake Out Pokemon. Golduck. Is Politoed or Pelipper in here? Hold on. Pelipper is confirmed. Okay, so the return of Double Duck. Actually, wait, is Ludicolo confirmed? No. Is Kingdra confirmed? No. Okay, no, we have the return of Double Duck just by virtue of Golduck existing in the same format as... why can't I spell right? Sorry, you guys are having to hear that Windows noise. Golduck existing next to Pelipper, saying that we saw a lot in 2017. Basically, it was Watorium Z Golduck next to Tailwind Pelipper with Drizzle. So it was like just absurdly fast. Pelipper was able to deal with all the grass types by virtue of having 100% accurate Hurricane, and Golduck was just like a monster of a Pokemon, hitting things with like Life Orb, Hydro Pump, Life Orb, Scald, depending on what you wanted to do. Had access to ice moves, and I know I said we wouldn't talk about terrestrialization, but if there's a Terrastal Pokemon, if there's going to be anything terrestrializing, I think if we're going to see Double Duck, Water Terrestrialization Golduck to boost the power of its moves is going to be a pretty devastating one. So it's definitely going to be, I would say, unless like we have Grassy Glide Pokemon, probably a top tier. Didn't I already cover Arcanine? Or I guess I like skipped over to Arcanine. But let's see. I might like skip over some Pokemon I don't think are going to be good. Slowbro, it depends. It's like a decent Trick Room Pokemon. It heavily depends if there are better Trick Room options. Like if Dusclops is in this format, probably no Slowbro. If there are just like really oppressive ghost type, Slowbro probably isn't that good. Cloyster did see some mild usage in VGC 17 when that was a thing. When that was like our last normal regional dex, you know, it didn't have like Dynamax or anything. So it could be good. It really depends. Gengar is usually a solid pick. Gengar is the type of Pokemon that does well in pretty much any format you need it to. Focus Sash, Sludge Bomb, Shadow Ball, Trick Room, and like Will-O-Wisp is like not a bad set usually. You're unable to fake out this Pokemon because it's Ghost type, and while it is fast, and it like, you know, a lot of people say, but Moxie boosted, Marcos boosted. Why are you running max speed Trick Room? That is a very common thing. Believe it or not, max speed Trick Room is a very common thing. Like, people expect this thing to want to just go for attacks. Being able to set up Trick Room on like the turn it goes down is like, or the turn before it goes down is pretty huge. So that is probably going to be a set that you see. Hypno, I don't expect to be good. I actually forget, does Hypno get Fake Out? I feel like it does, but I also feel like it doesn't. It does not. Okay. Chansey, I'm just going to say, prepare for hell if Shuckle is in this dex. Alright, no confirmed Shuckle. Wait, is Carbink? Okay, no confirmed Carbink. If there's something with guard split and a good defensive stat, Chansey will be a thing next to it. That is a strat that we have seen many, many years in a row. The EVs are nothing to write home about. We basically have Sylveon confirmed, so obviously Sylveon's going to be top tier. At least for what we assume, you know. We can assume right now it's probably going to be top tier. Dragonite is historically not like the best in regional dexes, but it is a pseudo-legendary, and it did get a pretty big buff this recent gen. While usually you would see Dragonite run like multi-scale and just set up, Inner Focus isn't bad either. Like, being unable to flinch or fake out it means that, like, you know, Dragon Dance like Dragon Claw, Extreme Speed, and like Earthquake is a pretty viable set, and it might be a good Terrasta Pokemon for all we know. Ampharos, not historically great. Azumarill, this is something that I'm terrified of. Azumarill is in the game. So I talked about this in the last video, but Azumarill is a Belly Drum Pokemon that it has access to Aqua Jet, and it's a Fairy Water type, and we have
Why are you
this guy up
attacking
here.
my
It's the end of
bees?
the world. It's actually the end of the world. We have Cyclizar, who has a move that will it'll take half of its HP, make a substitute, and then automatically switch it out. So you can use it like twice per battle max, unless you have like a Citrus Berry, I assume, and it automatically passes that substitute over to something. And if this thing passes a substitute into a Azumarill, it's over. It Belly Drums, it Aqua Jets, it wins. Like, the only weaknesses that Cyclizar has, Azumarill just eats. It resists or is immune to all of them. So end of the world, everyone say your prayers. Sudowoodo, probably bad. Jumpluff, not terrible as like a chlorophyll Pokemon, believe it or not. I believe he gets Strength Slap, right? It does get Strength Slap. It's like a Strength Slap, Sleep Powder, Tailwind Pokemon. Usually it gets Tailwind. I don't think it's... Or actually does get Tailwind? I don't know. I feel like it got Tailwind in a previous format, but I guess not because it's not showing up in National Dex. But yeah, sometimes you don't run an item on it and you just go with Acrobatics because its other flying moves are Doodoo Kaka. So, yeah. Not the best, not the worst either.
I think
Sunflora,
I gather up wood and build
it's bad, but it might get an evolution, who knows. Umbreon, definitely way better than Espeon. It is historically pretty decent because, for one, it can't be flinched. It can't be flinched because of Inner Focus, but it gets really cool tools like Taunt, Snarl, Yawn is a really big one, Foul Play. It doesn't need to invest anything to hit things hard, so that's cool. Prankster Murkrow, it's the other Prankster Tailwind. It's the Prankster Tailwind, or it's the priority Tailwind that we have at home. Could be pretty decent though. Skipping over these guys, they're not that great. Scizor, probably not bad in the absence of Incineroar, but with Arcanine around, it could be an issue for it. Scizor is obviously a historically great Pokemon. It gets access to stuff like Swords Dance, Bullet Punch with Technician, so it hits really hard. And actually, Arcanine was a pretty big part of the BDSP VGC meta that we played for a little bit. It was unofficial, but a lot of VGC players played it. And even in the event of Arcanine existing, Scizor was still quite good, so yeah. Ursaring implies that we're probably going to get Ursaluna, so Ursaluna's kind of insane. I really hope that this thing is included in the game, but yeah, it is a monster of a Pokemon. Just conceptually. We haven't seen it do anything yet, but let me tell you something. Here's all you need to know. Flame Orb Guts, you are immune to all status, so you don't have to worry about being like spored or sleep powdered, and then you have one of the strongest facades in the game because it's 140 base attack. This thing has legendary Pokemon stats, but it's just slow. Like, I am excited to use this guy. Non-fan, nothing to write home about. Nothing to write home about. Blissey's bad when we have Chansey and Eviolite. Tyranitar is historically great. I mean, like, Tyranitar is, like, one of the VGC Pokemon. So just taking a look at that, like, you already know what it's going to want to do. It can be a Rock Slide Pokemon. It can run Dragon Dance if it wants. It can be, like, an Assault Vest Pokemon and just, like, hit things with, like, Crunch and high horsepower and such. So it's good. Obviously, like, it depends if there are Sandrush Pokemon next to it, but for now, you know, we'll just assume it's decent. I already talked about Pelipper. Gardevoir is probably going to be, like, fine. It's going to be kind of similar to Gengar, and that's probably going to be, like, Sash, Trick Room. Breloom, a spore Pokemon. Breloom is historically one of the coolest Pokemon ever. It is true. Many people are talking about this. But it has access to Spore, which is going to be really cool. Spore, probably like a Focus Sash, maybe a Choice Scarf. That's another thing that would run before. But yeah, you just do like Jolly. This. Loaded Dice is an item that it might want to run, but I would imagine you just do like, you know, typical Bullet Seed, Mach Punch, Protect, maybe even Substitute. Who knows? It's a good Pokemon. It's always going to be good. Slacking, it depends if Weezing makes it in. We don't know if Weezing's in yet. If Weezing's in, Slacking is absurd. Slacking is actually usually better than Regigigas because where Regigigas has to have Weezing on the field at all times to be good, Weezing only has to be on the field every other turn for Slacking to do stuff. So that is something huge. Hariyama is always a great VGC Pokemon in regional dexes. We saw it do absolute insane work in the unofficial BDSP meta, but basically it is another Flame Orb Guts Pokemon. Don't worry about any kind of status, no Spore or nothing. Fake Out, it gets knockoff naturally, one of the few Pokemon that get knockoff naturally. Close Combat is an absolute menace to switch in on, and it does get stuff like Wide Guard, so it's going to be great. Also, that speed stat is pretty decent for Trick Room stuff, and it's super bulky. Oh my god, the way that the EV spreads that you would see on this thing were absurd. Let me see if I can find one. This is a team that I ran a while ago. Oh, wait, that's not it. Hold on. Yeah, I guess this isn't like the most absurd EV spread, but you will see some crazy EV spreads for Hariyama just because it is Hariyama and it has like that really high HP and really low defenses. So like you just, it gets crazy. But yeah, Sableye, it's a support Pokemon. Fake Out, prankster Pokemon, but Fake Out, Quash, Foul Play, Will-O-Wisp, all that's gonna be great. Metacham might be decent. It depends on like how good fighting types are. I mean, Metacham's usually not that great. It kind of got carried by its Mega, and in BDSP we almost never saw it. Torkoal, phenomenal Pokemon. If Venusaur is in this game, or if we have any kind of Chlorophyll Pokemon, like I think Vileplume might be in, I don't know. If there are Chlorophyll Pokemon and Torkoal exists in the game, actually is Lilligant in? Lilligant is, or we have Lilycool. It's gonna do After You, Eruption, and Sleep Powder. It is going to be a good Pokemon. Don't at me. These guys are bad. This guy's probably not that good. Zangoose, it needs an evolution. Seviper's not going to be good. Tropius, not good. Salamence, it's definitely going to be good. I mean, Dragon Dance, Intimidate, the works. It has a lot of tools at its disposal. Staraptor's going to do Staraptor things, most likely. It's going to want to go for, like, Choice Scarf, Max HP, Final Gambit, Brave Bird, Close Combat sets. These guys are usually pretty mid. Pachirisu will do the Pachirisu thing where everyone thinks that they're going to roleplay a Sejum Park for the first couple of weeks of the metagame and then realize that that really only worked in Gen 6. Drifblim depends on if we have any terrain Pokemon. If it has access to seeds, it can eat the seed and then be a Tailwind Mon. Honchkrow, as much as I want it to be top tier, it's going to be mid. Bronzong, probably top tier. Bronzong is one of the best Trick Room Pokemon ever. And having access to just like, you can do like safety goggles, or probably not safety goggles, but like leftovers. Trick Room, sorry if I can type, Trick Room, Iron Defense, Body Press, and like Hypnosis if you're crazy, even Protect if you want. This set goes crazy. It walls things out. It's very annoying to deal with, so yeah. Riolu has access to Prankster Coaching if coaching is given to it as like a TM move, or if there are move tutors in the game. Lucario could be decent, not the best fighting type. It does have Inner Focus though, so that's pretty decent. Hippowdon, kind of competing with Tyranitar. However, it did already compete with Tyranitar in Dynamax formats at the beginning of VGC 2020, and it still found usage. It was like a really decent Pokemon with Body Press, Yawn, Sandstream stuff. So, Abomasnow, the only Hail setter I believe we know right now. Weavile's probably not going to be that bad. A lot of these Pokemon we're coming up on are kind of mid. I already talked about Lilligant. Crocodile, probably going to be okay. I mean, it's an Intimidate ground type. There are other ground types that we could be using. Obviously, there's no Landorus, so Intimidate ground type is actually a pretty open role on a team that you could go with it right now. Zoroark, it's going to be Zoroark. You can never really tell how good it's going to be, but it's usually a gimmick. Hydreigon, oh, this thing's going to be insane with Terastallization. I don't want to get into it, but like it can turn into a Levitating Steel type with access to Flash Cannon and just boosting that to his power, so that's a thing. And just generally as like a Dragon type, you could do worse than this thing. Like, it is 98 base speed or 97 or something like that, and really high special attack. If I can remember how to spell it, Hydreigon. Yeah, 125 special attack, 98 speed, really good bulk. It does the work. I might use this in Spikemuth Cup. I kind of want to build Hydreigon now, but yeah, great Pokemon. Florges we haven't seen in a while. Does Florges get Trick Room? Does Florges get Trick Room? I don't know. It does not, but I haven't seen that thing in a long time. Pretty bulky on the special side. Not the best Pokemon though.
Okay.
I guess all you can really say for it is like, hey, you know, Flowerville, grass types can't have its stats lowered or inflicted by other Pokemon. Pretty cool. It's mid. Go-Goat, my goat, LeBron James, the Bronze Age. Go-Goat's gonna be okay. it's a grass type. There aren't too many good grass types in this dex from what I've seen so far. I guess you could run like a bulk up set with Horn Leech. Basically, Tapu Bulu, but without grassy terrain. It's going to be bad. Sylveon already said was going to be pretty good. Gudra is probably just going to be like AV Gudra. We see it do the same thing in every regional dex. It runs AV and coverage moves. Being immune to Spore with Sap Sipper is pretty cool. And that allows you to run a more threatening physical set, so it could fit on a couple of teams. But as a special attacker, it's probably better. You know, Flamethrower, Draco Meteor, Ice Beam, Sludge Bomb, that kind of coverage. Noivern is pretty interesting. Frisk is actually a really great ability, being able to identify items on lead, while also having one of the fastest Tailwinds in the game. While it's not as fast as Prankster Tailwind or Gale Wings Tailwind, it's up there, and it's got to be respected, because not every team will want to have a Talonflame, not every team will want to have a Murkrow, and this thing is probably the next best thing beyond those guys. It's probably better than Murkrow, actually. I would say this is like the second best Tailwind in the game.
Skeletons here.
Oricorio, nothing to write home about. Loses to Rock Slide.
What's up, guys?
Lycanroc, probably not that great. Who knows? Toxapex is not historically great in VGC, but you can make it work. Mudsdale, usually okay. Usually okay, you can get away with it. Stamina is a really cool ability, but also having access to Inner Focus to not be able to be flinched or intimidated now is pretty big. You can choice band it with like high horsepower. And yeah, Lurantis is probably going to be amazing as a grass type, just because of contrary superpower, Leaf Blade, or even like Leaf Storm sets. Zarina is probably the best grass type in the format, actually. It is, if we don't have Psychic Terrain in the regional decks, then this thing is going to be like pretty much standard. It has access to U-turn, Trop Kick, High Jump Kick, Triple Axle maybe if that's like a tutor, and it's just always great. It has like, and it's really bulky and has like decent speed and really high attack. I think this is one of like the best Pokemon ever made that always gets slept on until people realize how busted it is mid generation. So Komala probably not that great. And now we're getting into Gen 8. So Greedent, if there's no Snorlax, this is the Belly Grip Pokemon. Colossal, it has to use Terastallization, Rock Slide, and Aqua Dip to do anything, in my opinion. I think Flapple is going to be pretty bad without Dynamax, because it kind of relied on that to bypass the Hustle accuracy drop. And Appleton can actually be fairly decent. We actually talked about this on the Route 1 podcast the other day. But Appleton is kind of like Ferrothorn, but different. It has access to Thick Fat to help you eat those ice moves, but you could also do something like a, probably not Gluttony, maybe you could, probably just Thick Fat, but you would go with like Leftovers, Iron Defense, Body Press, Leech Seed, Apple Acid, and maybe you would drop like Apple Acid for Protect, and it depends on that. But it's actually like decently defensive. It's got 110 HP, 80 defense. If you set it up enough, it can be a bit of a menace. And it also beats Ferrothorn 1v1 if Ferrothorn gets added to the dex. These guys are pretty mid. Hatterene's probably going to be top tier though. One of the most reliable Trick Room setters due to Magic Bounce, and it has a really decent special attack stat. Psychic Fairy's also not that bad. Pincurchin is terrain. That is our first confirmed terrain so far, because it has Electric Surge, but we'll have to see if they maybe add some new terrain setters in the decks, or if there are some terrain setters that haven't been revealed yet. If every terrain setter makes it in, that means that Weezing gets in, so that is pretty good. That means that Slacking will be decent. Stonjourner might actually be good in the non-Dynamax format, who knows? Ice-Q, not historically great, and Caparaja could be okay. It's like a Sheer Force Trick Room Pokemon. It has access to pretty low speed set and pretty powerful attacks, so it really depends on how good the other Steel types are. But as of right now, it's facing very little competition as far as Steel Mons go, just like Bronzong and like one or two other ones, so who knows? But yeah, those are my thoughts on all the Pokemon that we've gotten confirmed for the deck so far and how good they're probably going to be in the decks. Obviously, this is going to depend on what else gets included, but this is a pretty substantial dump of Pokemon. We have a good idea of what's going to be viable and what isn't based off of just their history in VGC, but obviously the yet-to-be-revealed Pokemon could put a hole in their plans, so yeah. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Just go in real quick.
What's up, everybody? everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet video. I don't know, I have to get used to saying that because Scarlet and Violet drops in a little over a month, November 17th I believe, so yeah, we got like 6 weeks until that happens. It's actually coming up pretty soon, but yeah, today what I want to do is something that honestly a normal YouTuber would have done months ago, but I'm not normal, I'm a genetic freak. And
Hey everyone, Pushing Up Roses here, and
Great school children played a game of great and terrible power, but these Yu-Gi-Oh! Duels erupted into chaos, as nobody could agree what the rules were, until a great and powerful 6th grader locked away his
God, I
cartridge.
had that poster. I had that same poster. Oh, too far. Good lord. I brought this up multiple times in the past, and I'll bring it up again. A long time ago, this would have been back during the era where RedTube was like the king of porn. I watched a video where 2 lesbians were fisting their buttholes in front of a Yu-Gi-Oh poster. Not this one, but one almost like it, with Yugi holding the card straight up with
What
the
the
Egyptian
fuck
symbols
was that
behind him, and it said
sentence?
Yu-Gi-Oh. And now, every time I see a Yu-Gi-Oh poster, it's almost the first thing I think of. It's like, damn, I remember that video. There's almost no theme song that hits harder than the Yu-Gi-Oh theme.
It's time to duel!
Somebody help him. Help him to the hospital.
Yeah, Ackman's a karate master.
Oh, I guess cardboard is actually quite the booming industry. Despite my rose-tinted
Yu-Gi-Oh!
glasses,
Fun fact: Yu-Gi-Oh! Is still, I think, number 18 most profitable franchise of all time. I think. Someone correct me. It's top 20, but it's up there. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is absolutely huge.
He lives in a world where everyone has ridiculous haircuts, and eventually he obtains and solves the Millennium Puzzle.
No, the
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Shadow Realm was
absorbs
invented
the
for
soul of an
Western.
ancient Egyptian pharaoh named
In the
Aten,
normal Yu-Gi-Oh!
and
They
gets
just
an
die.
alter ego, Yami Yugi. And together the two run amok within society by challenging people of questionable morals to a game of chance, and then if they lose, killing them, banishing their soul to eternal damnation in the Shadow Realm. Wait, the main character does all this? That's right, the protagonist of Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a mass-murdering vigilante. That's fucking badass. But
It
what
is
we got here in
badass.
America, anything remotely related to religion, sex, titties, basically anything cool, they censored Taya going to
True.
the bathroom. Why?
Some of the things were very obscure that they would censor. They would censor like midriff and stuff like that. It's just it's interesting because people don't realize that as kids because it's like the first time that you've seen it. And you might be wondering like, what's going on?
I actually never saw this one. I didn't know Parasite got changed. Damn, that is much cooler artwork.
So, pretty hardcore stuff, right? But somewhere along
Yep,
the line,
that's all
it was
Season Zero
decided that
shit.
All these unique shadow games would
The-
morph into one.
yeah, you
played
just
with
mentioned it.
cards, monsters, and real
They just brought it
magic.
all together for the
Whether or
card
not
game.
The anime was just a vessel to sell trading cards, I can't say. But a major
Pine
reason
trees,
Yu-Gi-Oh!
finally.
is so awesome is its premise. You're reliving ancient Egyptian battles.
So
in
cool.
games
Yeah, I
of
loved it
life
as a kid.
and death. I've got two more questions. I suppose I should explain how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is played for all you heathens.
Oh, you should use Master Duel instead. Love that line. What happens in that scene is Kaiba sends a rocket to space with some Yu-Gi-Oh cards in it, and his reasoning is he wants to teach aliens how to duel. And if I remember correctly, an alien did respond and come down to duel us. Isn't that the origin of Yubel? Who was it? I'm pretty sure it's Yubel, which is a series of cards in the game. There's Yubel, Yubel, Terror Incarnate, Yubel, Ultimate Nightmare, or some shit. It was Elemental Hero Neos. I don't know, I'm going off memory. I don't remember fully. I just remember that part.
You triggered my trap card!
To me, like, that's almost like indicative of what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like, you've activated my draft card, right? Like, you don't.
Yeah, now traps are kind of fucking worthless because everythle's so quick.
Like, nothing can happen.
can't
Like,
wait a
you evacuated
turn.
my trap. I use this. I use that. You know.
The only
you
trap
thought,
that's really
like,
good now is
those
skill
would've come
drain.
back.
You thought, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you thought. There's a lot more to it than that, but Duel Monsters was all about building a deck of 40 or more cards that synergize and create a cohesive strategy. You know, come to think
And
of it,
imprint.
none
Oh,
of
and
society
imprint.
resolve
Skill
all their
drain and
personal
imprint.
disputes by playing a
Everything
children's
else is
card
hand
game.
traps.
You know what?
Or
It doesn't
outledge.
matter.
I have a lot of things.
Attaboy.
Unfortunately, no, I am not a
That's
virgin.
nothing, though.
I hope you can accept me into your ranks despite that.
I discovered Yu-Gi-Oh! At the best
One day
time
I'll show you
possible
my
in the
room.
4th grade. Must have been 2003.
One day.
Because Yu-Gi-Oh!
He's
never
got some good items there, though. He kind of glanced over some of these, but these are like some OG starter decks in here. And then he's even got some of the old legendary duelist box over here. I think he had the. Yep, he's got Joey, Kaiba. Kaiba one's got some money in there.
You know, like Breaker the Magical Warrior, Spirit Reaper, Sandman, which is the.
These aren't iconic cards, though. Those are just like really good cards from back in the day that people remember.
Maybe for me though, it actually would be Exodia.
True, Exodia is another big one. Karibo.
The imposing presence of Jinzo.
Ew, not even first ed? Oh. Eek. Ah, I wouldn't even let something like that touch my hands. Not even first ed Jinzo. Yikes.
The mysterious horror of Relinquished and the badass armor of the Black Luster Soldier. Egyptian god cards. Exodia, a monster so powerful it's illegal to play.
Where's yours? It's right over there. You can't see it. I'll show my room at some point. I have them, like, so I have every single card ever printed in Yu-Gi-Oh! In first ed, as long as it's ultimate rare and above. But I have most of the sets framed, so I put them around my walls. I've shown my whole well, I've shown most of my collection in a video like last year. I'd always dreamed of completing that collection. It took me a long time, but we did it.
Initially, Duel Monsters wasn't rocket science, but apparently that's what it's turned into.
So that's a common misconception that I had as well. It just wasn't rocket science because I was just a snot-nosed fucking baby boy idiot. So at a high level, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta was always pretty deep. Like they had infinite combos as far back as like Magic Ruler, I think. So it always had like crazy turns you could do. The only difference now is the turns are much longer because of all the summoning mechanics.
If you tried coming back to Yu-Gi-Oh! After taking an 18-year break, you got no chance.
Yeah, you absolutely fucked.
The amount of new mechanics and stuff you gotta learn just to competently play will make your head spin.
Oh god, yeah, that's not even the half of it. The chain links, the spell speeds, oh my god, it's so much.
The best normal summon monster was the Tatsumi Giant at one point. Then it was La Jin,
Then it was
Chaser,
yep.
Gemini Elf, Alexandra.
This was controversial. Do you guys know why Mechanical Chaser was controversial? Because it was only for the tournament. It was a tournament card. So that you could only get it from going to the actual events. And it was the best card in the game for a while because it was an 1850 attack. So if you played that on your opening hand, you kind of fucked your opponent off a rip. It was actual pay to win for a minute.
You could be the best player in the world. It doesn't matter how good you are. You cannot outplay certain mechanics of the game. Certain things will just say you can't special summon. Doesn't matter. You can take the worst player, give him that one Yu-Gi-Oh card, and like even if he's brand new to the game, he can activate that and it's game over.
I don't know. Maybe the problem is the business
Floodgates
model. How do
is
you
what it's
sell
called.
new cards?
One of the biggest problems with the game that you'll see if you care at all. I don't know how many people actually give a fuck. But Yu-Gi-Oh has floodgates which lock out certain things. So one of the biggest ones at the moment that a lot of people don't like is something called Artifact Scythe and Mystic Mine. Artifact Scythe is it's a monster card that you can play in your spell and trap card zone. And without getting too deep into it, basically what happens is when you get it down the right way, it locks your opponent out from special summoning at all. Mystic Mine is a spell card where your opponent doesn't play. Mystic Mine just means your opponent's not playing that game anymore. You play Mystic Mine, the game is you're just done playing for a while. Here, I'll pull up Mystic Mine. Even if you don't know Yu-Gi-Oh, you can read this and be like, wow, that sounds fucking dumb. And it is fucking dumb. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, your opponent cannot activate monster effects or declare an attack. If you control more monsters than your opponent does, you cannot activate monster effects or declare an attack. Once per turn during the end phase, if both players control the same number of monsters, destroy this card. So you can see why that'd be troublesome, since the entire game revolves around effects and attacks. And this is an extremely oppressive card. It legitimately stops the game until the card is dealt with. I'll tell you right now, I'm not high level with Magic. I'm still trying to get better at it. I still like Magic. It is nothing like Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is so unbelievably, needlessly convoluted and complicated compared to Magic, where it's a lot more intuitive. If you're good at Magic, you're not going to translate any of that to Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic is probably a better designed game, though. I would agree with that. The beauty of Magic is anyone can learn it pretty quickly. At least get, like, somewhat of a grasp on it. Yu-Gi-Oh! You're going to need to set aside, like, a week and study it like a college course. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just so much to take in all at once. So, that's the card. He no longer can play against me. So, he's unaffected by shit, and then the material I use with the right-hand shark makes it so he also can't be destroyed by battle. So he's totally unaffected by card effects, totally unaffected by magic and trap cards. Doesn't matter, he's unaffected. And the material I use makes him unable to be destroyed by battle, so he actually just can't die. Under no circumstances can he die. Unless he has a kaiju where he can tribute it. So this just goes on for like 30 minutes here. This poor guy just sits here and just stews in it. Like, he just can't do anything. He can't lava golem me, I only have one monster. So I just slowly draw Exodia over the course of 18 turns. Now, this guy did have a way of beating me, though. He could have used Sky Striker Hayate, I think, the one that attacks directly, and just attack my life points. But like a fucking moron, he blew through all of his copies of it before I summoned it. So he was fucked. Holy shit, you literally don't play the game? Nope, I just sit here past turn, slow draw Exodia. There's just certain things you can do in Yu-Gi-Oh, man, that shut down playing. But this isn't like a good deck. Like, this deck will never win a tournament or anything. Oh, I didn't remember him surrendering. I remember drawing Exodia, but that might have been a different time I played it. But yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh's got so much crazy shit to it.
What the fuck? There is no limit to the number of monsters you can summon, cards you can search from your deck, cards you can get back from your graveyard to your hand, or
not everything's once per turn, so you can infinite loop.
Crazy shit. Yu-Gi-Oh has gotten to a point where so much shit is happening, you can end up having 15-minute long turns, where someone goes.
That's a quick
half
turn.
Of their deck has 10 cards in the graveyard and like 8 cards in their hand, 5 monsters on the field on the first turn.
He can't be destroyed by spells or traps. What? Alrighty then, I special summon Blue Eyes to attack your legendary fisherman. He can't be destroyed by battle. So
I haven't seen Legendary Fisherman 3. I can't imagine he's good though.
He is unaffected by all spells and traps. Okay, so I'm gonna punch you in the mouth and then I'm gonna flip this table over.
If I were to explain all.
If you want a really good example of a card that was meta-defining for a little while, it was the Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. This card is, I still think, an outrageous card, and this was totally legal for a while. This card was so fucking stacked. So unbelievably fucking stacked. So it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. It has a great base stat line, by the way. It can't be targeted by effects. Like, it is just so nasty, and it can just straight destroy a monster that your opponent controls and inflict damage to your opponent based on its attack. Such a nutty card.
Put Gravity Bind on the field as the field spell card and then activate Messenger of Peace, which will allow me to get Skate.
That's a strong board.
Now I can add 1 card from my graveyard. And when the left leg.
Why do you like Yu-Gi-Oh so much when it's broken and for so long? I don't know, there's just nothing like it. It's just such an outrageously complicated card game that you can do some goofy shit with.